A rich man's wife becomes sick, and when she feels that her end was drawing near, she called her only daughter to her beside and said, "Dear child, remain poised and good, and then our dear God will always protect you, and I will look down on you from heaven and be near you." With this, she closed her eyes and died. The girl went out to her mother's grave every day and wept, and she remained poised and good. When winter came, the snow spread a white cloth over the grave, and when the spring sun had removed it again, the man took himself another wife. This wife brought two daughters into the house with her. They were beautiful, with fire of face, but evil and dark hearts. Time soon grew very bad for the poor stepchild. "Why should that stupid goose sit in the parlor with us?" they said. "If she wants to eat bread, then she will have to earn it. Out with this kitchen maid." They took her beautiful clothes away from her, dressed her in an old grave smock, and gave her wooden shoes. "Just look at the proud princess. How decked out she is!" They shouted and laughed as they led her into the kitchen. There she had to do hard work from morning until evening. Get up before daybreak, carry water, make the fires, cook and wash. Besides this, the sisters did everything imaginable to hurt her. They made fun of her, scattered peas and lentils into the ashes for her, so that she had to sit and pick them out again. In the evening, when she had worked herself weary, there was no bed for her. Instead, she had to sleep by the hearth of the ashes, and because she always looked dusty and dirty, they called her Cinderella. One day it happened that the father was going to the fire, and he asked these two stepdaughters what he should bring back from them. "Beautiful dresses," said one. "Pearls and jewels," said the other. "And you, Cinderella?" he said. "What do you want?" "Father, break off for me the first tune that brushes against your head on your way home." So he bought beautiful dresses, pearls, and jewels for his two stepdaughters. On his way home, as he was riding through a green thicket, a hazel twig brushed against him and knocked off his hat. Then he broke off the twigs and took it with him. Arriving home, he gave his stepdaughters the things that they had asked for, and he gave Cinderella the twig from the hazel bush. Cinderella thanked him, went to her mother's grave, and planted the branch on it. And she wept so much that her tears fell upon it and watered it. It grew and became a beautiful tree. Cinderella went to this tree 3 times every day, and beneath it she wept and prayed. A white bird came to the tree every time, and whenever she expressed a wish, the bird would shoot down to her what she had wished for. Now, it happened that the king proclaimed a festival that was to last 3 days. All the beautiful young girls in the land were invited, so that his son could select a bride for himself. When the two stepsisters heard that they too had been invited, they were in high spirits. They called Cinderella, saying, "Comb our hair from us, brush our shoes, and fasten our buckles. We are going to the festival at the king's castle." Cinderella obeyed, but wept, because she too would have liked to go to the dance with them. She begged her stepmother to allow her to go. "You, Cinderella?" she said. "You, all covered with dust and dirt, and you want to go to the festival? You have neither clothes or shoes, and yet you want to dance." However, because Cinderella kept asking, the stepmother finally said, "I have scattered a ball of lentils into the ashes for you. If you can pick them out again in 2 hours, then you may go with us." The girl went through the back door into the garden and called out, "You damn pigeons, you candles, and all you birds beneath the sky, come and help me to gather. The good ones go into the pot, the bad ones go into your crop. Two white pigeons come in through the kitchen window, and then the turtle doves, and finally all the birds beneath the sky came whirring and swarming in, and laid around the ashes. The pigeons nodded their heads and began to pick, and the others also began to pick. They gathered all the good grains into the bowl. Hardly 1 hour and passed before they were finished, and they all flew out again. The girl took the bowl to her stepmother, and was happy, thinking that now she would be allowed to go to the festival with them. But the stepmother said, "No, Cinderella. You have no clothes, and you don't know how to dance. Everyone would only laugh at you." Cinderella began to cry, and then stepmother said, "You may go if you are able to pick 2 balls of lentils out of the ashes for me in 1 hour." Thinking to herself, she will never be able to do that, the girl went through the back door into the garden and called out, "You damn pigeons, you turtle doves, and all your birds beneath the sky, come and help me together. The good ones go into the pot, the bad ones go into your crop." 2 white pigeons came in through the kitchen window, and then the turtle doves, and finally all the birds beneath the sky came whirring and swarming in, and laid around the ashes. The pigeons nodded their heads and began to pick, and the others also began to pick. They gathered all the good grains into the bowls. Before a half hour and passed, they were finished, and they all flew out again. The girl took the balls to her stepmother and was happy, thinking that now she would be allowed to go to the festival with them. But stepmother said, "It's no use. You are not coming with us, for you have no clothes and you don't know how to dance. We would be ashamed of you." With this, she turned her back on Cinderella and hurried away with her 2 proud daughters. Now that no one else was at home, Cinderella went to her mother's grave beneath the hazel tree and cried out, "Shake and quiver, little tree, throw gold and silver down to me." Then the bird threw a gold and silver dress down to her, and slippers embroidered with silk and silver. She quickly put on the dress and went to the festival. Her stepsisters and her stepmother did not recognize her. They thought she must be a foreign princess, for she looked so beautiful in the golden dress. They never once thought it was Cinderella, for they thought that she was sitting at home in the dirt, looking for dainties in the ashes. The prince approached her, took her by the hand, and danced with her. Furthermore, he would dance with no one else. He never let go of her hand, and whenever anyone else came and asked her to dance, he would say, "She is my dance partner." She danced until evening, and then she wanted to go home, but the prince said, "I'll go along to escort you," for he wanted to see to whom the beautiful girl belonged. However, she eluded him and jumped into the pond of coop. The prince waited until her father came, and then he told him that an unknown girl had jumped into the pigeon coop. The old man thought, could it be Cinderella? He had then bring him an axe and a pick so that he could break the pigeon coop apart, but no one was inside. When they got home, Cinderella was lying in the ashes, dressed in her dirty clothes. A dim little oil lamp was burning in the fireplace. Cinderella had quickly jumped down from the back of the pigeon coop and had run to the hazel tree. There she had taken off her beautiful clothes and laid them on the grave, and the bird had taken them away again. Then, dressed in a grey smoke, he had returned to ashes in the kitchen. The next day, when the festival began anew, and her parents and her stepsisters had gone again, Cinderella went to the hazel tree and said, "Shake and quiver, little tree, throw gold and silver down to me." Then the bird threw down an even more magnificent dress than on Prudence Day. When Cinderella appeared at the festival in the dress, everyone was astonished at her beauty. The prince had waited until she came. Then immediately took her by the hand and danced only with her. When others came and asked her to dance with them, he said, "She is my dance partner." When evening came, she wanted to leave, and the prince followed her, wanted to see into which house she went. But she ran away from him and into the most magnificent palace. She climbed as nimbly as a sparrow into the branches, and the prince did not know where she had gone. He waited until her father came. Then they said to him, The unknown girl has undone me, and I believe she has climbed up the pear tree." The father thought, could it be Cinderella? He had an axe brought to him and cut down the tree, but no one was in it. When they came to the kitchen, Cinderella was lying there and in the ashes as usual, for she had jumped down from the other side of the tree, had taken the beautiful dress back to the bird in the hazel tree, and put on her grave smoke. On the third day, When her parents and sisters had gone away, Cinderella went again to her mother's grave and said to the tree, "Shake and quiver, little tree, throw gold and silver down to me." This time the bird threw down to her a dress that was more splendid and magnificent than any she had yet had. And the slippers were of pure gold. When she arrived at the festival in this dress, everyone was so astonished that they did not know what to say. The prince danced only with her, and whenever anyone else asked her to dance, he would say, "She is my dance partner." When evening came, Cinderella wanted to leave, and the prince tried to escort her, but she ran away from him so quickly that she could not follow her. Then the prince, however, had set a trap. He had the enter straight away screamed with pitch, and when she ran down the stairs, her left slipper stuck into the pitch. The prince picked it up. It was small and dainty, and of pure gold. The next morning, he went with it to the man and said to him, "No one should be my wife except for one whose foot fits his golden shoe." The two sisters were happy to hear this, for they had pretty feet. With her mother standing by, the older one took the shoe into her bedroom to try it on. She could not get her big toe into it, for the shoe was too small for her. Then her mother gave a sniff and said, "Cut off your toe. When you're a queen, you will no longer have to go on foot." The girl cut off her toe, forced her foot into the shoe, swallowed the pain, and went out to the prince. He took her on his horse and his very breed and rode away with her. However, they had to pass the grave, and there, on the hazel tree, sat the two pigeons, crying out, rock thee go, there's bolt in the shoe. The shoe is too tight, the bride is not right." Then he looked at her foot and saw how the blood was running from it. He turned his horse around and took the false bride home again, saying that she was not the right one, and that the other sister could try on the shoe. She went into her bedroom and got her toe into the shoe all right, but her hair was too large. Then his mother gave her a nip, said, "Cut a piece of your hair. When you're a queen, you will no longer have to go on foot." The girl cut a piece of her hair, forced her foot into the shoe, swallowed the pain, and went out to the prince. He took her on his horse and his breed and rode away with her. When they passed the hazel tree, the two pigeons were sitting in it, and they cried out, "Ready go, there's blood in the shoe. The shoe is too tight, the braid is not right." He looked down at her foot and saw how the blood was running out of her shoe, and how it had stained her white stocking all red. Then he turned his horse around and took the false bride home again. "This is not the right one either," he said. "Don't you have another daughter?" "No," said the man. "Well, it's only a deformed little Cinderella from my first wife, but she cannot possibly be the bride." The prince told him to send her to him, but the mother answered, "Oh no, she is much too dirty. She cannot be seen." But the prince insisted on it, and they had to call Cinderella. She first washed her hand and face clean, and then went and bowed down before the prince, and gave her the golden shoe. She sat down on a stool, pulled her foot out of the heavy wooden shoe, and put it into the sleeper, and it fit her perfectly. When she stood up, the prince looked into her face, and he recognized the beautiful girl who had danced with him. He cried out, "She is my true bride." The stepmother and two sisters were horrified and turned pale with anger. The prince, however, took Cinderella onto his horse and rode away with her. As they passed by the hazel tree, the two white pigeons cried out, Rickety go, no blood in the shoe is not tight, the bride is right." After they had cried this out, they both flew down and lit on Cinderella's shoulders, one on the right and another on the left, and remained sitting there. When the wedding with the prince was to be held, the two four sisters came, wanting to gain favor with Cinderella and to share her good fortune. When the bridal couple walked into the coach, the elder sister walked on their right side and the younger on their left side, and the pigeons pecked out on one eye from each of them. Afterwards, as they came out of the crunch, coach, the elder one was on the left side and the younger one was on the right side, and then the pigeons pecked out of her eye from each of them, and thus, for their weakness and falsehood, they were punished with blindness as long as they lived. Once upon a time there lived an unhappy young girl. Unhappy she was, for her mother was dead. Her father had married another woman, a widow with two daughters, and her stepmother didn't like her one little bit. All the nice things, kind thoughts and loving touches were for her own daughters, and not just the kind thoughts of and love, but also just shoes, showers, delicious food, comforting beds, as well as every home comfort. All this was lying on her daughters, but for the poor unhappy girl, there was nothing at all. No dresses, only her stepsister's hand-me-down. No lovely dishes, nothing but scraps. No nice rest and comfort, for he had to work hard all day, and only when evening came was she allowed to sit for a while by the fire, near the cedars. That is how she got her nickname, for everybody called her Cinderella. Cinderella used to spend long hours all alone talking to the cat. The cat said, "Meow," which really meant, "Tell up, you have something neither of your stepsister had, and that's its beauty." It was quite true. Cinderella, even dressed in rags, with a dusty grey face from the cinders, was a lovely girl, while her stepsisters, no matter how slanted and elegant their clothes, they were still clumsy, and ugly, and always would be. And one day, a beautiful new dresses arrived at the house. A ball was to be held, and at court, and the stepsisters were getting ready to go to it. Cinderella didn't even dare ask, "What about me?" For she knew very well that what the answer to that would be. "You, my dear girl, you were staying at home to wash the dishes, scrub the floor, and turn down the bed for your stepsisters. They will come home tired and very sleepy, very sleepy." Cinderella sighed at the cat. "Oh dear, I'm so unhappy." And the cat meow. Suddenly, something amazing happened. In the kitchen, while Cinderella was sitting all by herself, there was a burst of lighting, and the fairy appeared. "Don't be alarmed, Cinderella," said the fairy. Fairy? "The wind belong me your signs. I know you would love to go to the ball, and so you should." "How can I, just in rags?" Cinderella replied. The servants will turn me away." The fairy smiled. With a flick of her magic wand, Cinderella found herself wearing the most beautiful dress, the loveliest ever seen in the realms. "Now that we have settled the matter of the dress," said the fairy, "we'll need to get you a coach, and a real lady would never go to a ball on foot. Quick, get me a pumpkin," she ordered. "Oh, of course," said Cinderella, rushing away. Then the fairy turned to the cat. "You bring me 7 mice." "7 mice," said the cat. "I didn't know fires ate mice too." "Do not for eating, silly. Do as you are told, and remember they must be alive." Cinderella soon returned a fine pumpkin, and the cat with 7 mice had caught in the cellar. "Good!" exclaimed the fairy, with a flick of her magic wand. "Wonders! The pumpkin turned into a sparkling coach, and the mice became 6 white horses, while the 7th mouse turned into a coachman in a smart uniform and crying a rip." Cinderella could hardly believe her eyes. "I shall present you at court. You will soon see the prince in whose honor and the ball is being held, will be enchanted by your loveliness. But remember, you must leave the ball at midnight and come home, for that this when the spell ends, your coat will turn back into pink, and the horse will become a mice again, and the coachman will turn back into a mouse, and you will be dressed again in rags and wearing clothes instead of the dainty little sleeper. Do you understand?" Cinderella smiled and said, "Yes, I understand." When Cinderella entered the ballroom and the palace, a hush fell. Everyone stopped in mid-sentence to admire her elegance, her beauty, and grace. "Who can that be?" people asked each other, and the two stepsisters also wondered who the newcomer was, for never in a month of Sundays would they ever have guessed that the beauty girl was really poor Cinderella who talked to the cat. When the prince set eyes on Cinderella, he was struck by her beauty. Walk over to her. He bowed deeply and asked her to dance, and to the great disappointment of all the young ladies, he danced with Cinderella all evening. "Who are you, fair maiden?" The prince kept asking her, but Cinderella only replied, "What does it matter who I am? You will never see me again anyway." "Oh, but I should. I'm quite certain," he replied. Cinderella had a wonderful time at the ball, but all of a sudden she heard the sound of the clock, the first stroke of midnight. She remembered what the fire had said, and without a word of goodbye, she slipped from the prince's arm and ran down the steps. As she ran, he lost one of her slippers, but not for a moment did she dream of stopping to pick it up. If the last stroke of midnight was sound, oh, what a disaster that would be! Out she fell and vanished into the midnight. The prince, who was now madly in love with her, picked up her slipper and said to his ministers, "Go and search everywhere for the girl whose foot this sleepy face. I will never be contacted until I find her." So the minister tried the sleepy on the foot of all girls, and on Cinderella's foot as well. Surprise! The sleepy fitted perfect. "That awful tiger slim simply cannot have been at the ball," snapped the stepmother. "Tell the prince he ought to marry one of my two daughters. Can't you see how ugly Cinderella is? Can't you see?" Suddenly she broke off, for the fire had appeared. "That's enough!" she exclaimed, raising her magic wand. In a flash, Cinderella appeared in a splendid dress, shining with youth and beauty. Her stepmother and stepsisters gaped at her in amazement, and the minister said, "Come with us, Fire Madam. The prince awaits you to present you with his engagement ring." So Cinderella joyfully went with them and lived happily ever after with her prince. And as for the cat, he